The patient on that table had 11 minutes. Maybe 12 if the anesthesiologist was having a good night. The blood bank was empty. The backup supply was 40 minutes away. The surgical team had tried 4 units, and every single one had triggered a reaction that pushed Marcus Webb closer to the edge of a table he was not going to walk away from. There was one person in that hospital who knew why. She was standing in the hallway, in her scrubs, with her badge, with 17 years of critical care nursing behind her and a research paper she had written herself, unpublished, unread by anyone in that building, that contained the exact information that could save his life. Her name was Dr. Simone Graves. Not Doctor of Medicine, Doctor of Nursing Practice. The highest clinical degree her profession offered. A DNP that had taken her 6 years of night school while she worked double shifts on the surgical floor. And she was standing in the hallway because 20 minutes ago, Dr. Elliot Marsh, Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery, 41 years at Mercy General, a man whose photograph hung in the lobby above the words Excellence in Medicine, had looked at her and said 4 words. Not in my or. She was still standing there. Because she was not leaving. And the clock was still running. Simone Graves had not planned to become a nurse. She had planned to become a surgeon. At 22, graduating top of her class from Spelman College with a biology degree and an MCAT score that made her pre-med advisor sit up straight for the first time in a decade, she had applied to 11 medical schools. She was waitlisted at 4. Rejected by 7. Her advisor, a well-meaning white man named Dr. Patel who wore the same brown cardigan every Thursday, had told her the scores were competitive but the field was competitive and perhaps she might consider. She had thanked him and left his office and sat in her car for 45 minutes. Then she had applied to nursing school. Not as a consolation. Not as a retreat. As a recalculation. She had wanted to heal people. The path she had assumed was available turned out to have conditions she hadn't been told about. So she found another path. A harder one in many ways. One that paid less, demanded more, and came with the permanent social tax of being underestimated by every physician who had not yet been in a room with her when things went wrong. Because when things went wrong, when the numbers changed fast and the attending was 3 minutes away and the family was in the hallway and the patient was deteriorating in real time, Simone Graves was the person everyone wanted in the room. Not because she had been told she was exceptional. Because she had 17 years of evidence. Mercy General Hospital was not a bad place to work as hospitals went. The nursing staff was unionized. The cafeteria had a Caribbean food station on Thursdays that Simone treated as a personal holiday. The charge nurses rotated fairly. The on-call schedule was brutal but equal opportunity brutal, which she had decided to count as a form of respect. And then there was Dr. Elliot Marsh. He was not a bad surgeon. She wanted to be fair about this even now, even standing in this hallway. By every measurable metric, complication rates, mortality outcomes, peer review scores, Elliot Marsh was an excellent surgeon. He was also a man who had been the most important person in every room he had ever entered and had structured his entire personality around this fact. He did not believe nurses belonged in his operating room beyond their designated functions. He did not ask their names. He did not accept clinical observations from nursing staff during procedures. He had, on 3 documented occasions, removed nurses from his or mid-procedure for what he termed unnecessary commentary. All 3 had been women. 2 had been black. The hospital had done what hospitals do, documented it, discussed it in a committee and filed it somewhere soft. Simone had worked with him 12 times in 17 years. She had learned, with great precision, exactly what he would and would not hear from her. She had learned to route her observations through residents. To write thorough handoff notes that contained, in the careful language of clinical documentation, everything she needed the surgical team to know without it appearing to come directly from her. It was inefficient. It was exhausting. It was, she had decided, the tax she paid to keep working at a hospital she otherwise loved. She had been paying it for 11 years. Tonight, the tax was going to cost someone his life. Unless she stopped paying it. Marcus Webb was 53 years old. He was a high school basketball coach in the Bronx who had driven his daughter to her college orientation that morning, helped her set up her dorm room, and on the drive home had felt a pain in his chest that he described to his wife over the phone as, probably nothing. It was not nothing. He arrived at Mercy General's emergency department at 7:14 p.m. with a type A aortic dissection, a tear in the inner wall of the largest artery in the body, a condition that kills half its patients before they reach a hospital and another significant percentage on the table. He was lucky to be alive at arrival. He would need to remain lucky for several more hours. The emergency surgery began at 8:02 p.m. under Dr. Marsh. Standard protocol for his blood type, O positive, listed on his medic alert card, had been initiated. The blood bank had 4 units ready. Simone was not in the OR. She was finishing a handoff on the cardiac ICU floor above when the charge nurse flagged her. They're having trouble with Webb's blood. Transfusion reactions. Marsh's team can't figure it out. Simone had stopped walking. What reactions? Hemolytic. The blood is typed correctly O positive. They've tried 2 units. Both reactive. Simone had stood very still. Something moved in her memory, fast like a card turning over. What's his name again? Webb. Marcus. 53 male came in from the Bronx, Simone said quietly. Coached at Lincoln High. The charge nurse stared. You know him? I know his file, Simone said. He was my patient 18 months ago. Routine pre-op workup for a knee procedure. We ran an extended blood panel. She was already moving toward the stairs. He has a rare subtype. It's in his chart, or it should be in his chart. He's O positive on standard typing, but he has a variant antigen, Rh17 negative. It's in the extended panel. It would not show on a standard type N screen. The charge nurse was keeping pace with her. Does the OR team know? Not if they only ran the standard screen. Which they would have, given the emergency presentation. She pushed open the stairwell door. I need to get to that OR. She arrived at the surgical floor at 8:29 p.m. She badged through the OR corridor doors and walked to the scrub sink outside OR 3 where she could see, through the observation window, the controlled chaos of a surgery going wrong at a measured pace. The particular atmosphere of a room full of professionals working very hard to maintain the appearance of control while the situation degraded beneath them. She pushed through the anteroom door. I need to speak to Dr. Marsh. The scrub tech looked up. He's mid-procedure. You can't. I have critical information about the patient's blood type. It is directly relevant to the transfusion reactions they're experiencing. I need 30 seconds. The tech hesitated. Through the window she could see Marsh look up at the sound of her voice through the intercom. His eyes found her. Even behind the surgical mask and the magnifying loupes, she could read his expression. He spoke without looking away from his field. Who is that? Graves, someone said. Cardiac ICU nurse. She says she has. I know who she is. His voice was flat. She is not sterile. She is not on this surgical team. And I did not request a consult. Dr. Marsh. Not. He looked up then directly at the window directly at her. In my OR. She stood in the hallway. The anteroom door had swung shut behind her with a soft, definitive sound. She looked at the wall. At the OR door. At the small window through which she could see the monitoring equipment, the waveforms, the pressure readings, the numbers that told the story of a man running out of time. She had 2 options. The first was to go through the charge nurse, who would go through the nursing supervisor, who would need to reach the attending of record, who would need to reach Marsh through the OR intercom, and by the time this information arrived through the correct channels. She looked at the clock above the OR door. 8:31 p.m. She had a second option. She pulled out her hospital pager, the one she had carried for 17 years, and she paged the chief medical officer. Not the on-call administrator. Not the nursing supervisor. Not the resident on call. The chief medical officer, Dr. Yolanda Harris, who had 8 months ago sat across from Simone in a small conference room and said, if you ever need anything, I mean that, Simone, anything, you page me directly, after Simone had spent 4 hours keeping a coding patient alive long enough for the transplant team to arrive. She had never used the number. She used it now. Then she went to the nurse's station outside OR 3, sat down at the computer terminal, pulled up Marcus Webb's chart, and navigated to the extended panel from his pre-op workup 18 months ago. There it was. Rh17 negative. Rare phenotype. Compatible units, Rh null or Rh17 negative only. Note, patient counseled difficulty of sourcing compatible blood in emergency situations. Patient advised to carry documentation. He had not been carrying documentation tonight. She printed the page. Then she opened another window and pulled up the American Rare Donor Program database. She had login credentials from a research project 2 years ago and had never deleted them. She searched Rh17 negative inventory within 200 miles. 3 units. All at New York Blood Center on East 67th Street. 18 minutes by ambulance with lights. She had the phone number memorized. Force of habit. She had called them twice in 17 years for other patients. She picked up the desk phone and called. This is Simone Graves, DNP, Mercy General Hospital Cardiac ICU. I have a patient in emergency surgery with Rh17 negative phenotype experiencing hemolytic reactions. I need to confirm availability of compatible units and initiate an emergency transfer request. The coordinator on the other end, a young man who sounded like he had been waiting his whole shift for exactly this kind of call, said, "We have 3 units. I can have them processed and dispatched in 12 minutes. Please begin immediately. I'm transferring you to our blood bank to complete the request." She put him on hold, dialed the blood bank extension, patched the call through. She hung up. She looked at the clock. 8:38 p.m. Behind the OR window, the waveforms were doing something she did not like. She stood up, walked back to the OR door and knocked. The door opened. The scrub tech looked at her with an expression caught between protocol and panic. "The patient has Rh17 negative phenotype," Simone said. She handed the printed chart page through the door, holding it flat so it could be read without being touched by unsterile hands. "It's documented in his extended panel from 18 months ago. The transfusion reactions are because he cannot receive standard O-positive blood. Compatible units are in transit from New York Blood Center. Estimated arrival 14 minutes. The blood bank has the transfer order." She paused. "He needs a bridge. You need to buy 14 minutes. I'd suggest looking at his current volume status and considering whether." "I'll take it from here." The voice came from inside, not Marsh. A different voice. Younger. The senior resident, a woman named Dr. Priya Anand, who had rotated through Simone's ICU floor 6 months ago and who had, on 2 occasions, specifically sought out Simone's clinical assessment when she was uncertain. Dr. Anand took the chart page. Through the window, Simone watched her cross to Marsh, say something, hold up the page. Marsh's hands did not stop moving. He was a surgeon, his hands never stopped moving. But his head turned. He read. He looked up at the anesthesiologist. Something passed between them. Then Dr. Anand's voice came through the intercom. "Graves. What's his current pressure tolerance? Given the dissection repair, how aggressively can we volume load while we wait?" Simone was already at the intercom panel. "Given the repair site, I wouldn't push it. Conservative resuscitation. Hold at MAP of 65 to 70, tolerate the lower end. 14 minutes is manageable if you're not chasing a number." Pause. "Agreed," said Dr. Anand. Simone stepped back from the intercom. She went and sat in a chair in the hallway. And she waited. She had waited in hospital hallways before. It was, she had come to understand, one of the underappreciated skills of nursing. The ability to be present and ready in a space of uncertainty without spending yourself on the anxiety of it. To sit with the not yet known and remain useful rather than unraveling. She sat with her hands folded and watched the clock and thought about Marcus Webb driving home from dropping his daughter at college. She thought about what he must have felt, the pride of that morning, the particular bittersweet fullness of a parent who has gotten a child to the doorstep of the next part of their life. The drive home. The radio. The chest pain that started small. Probably nothing. She thought about his wife who was currently in a waiting room 2 floors down, and who had been told by a resident that there were some complications. The most expensive 2 words in medicine, words that could mean anything from minor and manageable to prepare yourself. She thought about the fact that she had known his blood type from a knee surgery pre-op. That she had read his extended panel because she always read extended panels, even when no one asked her to, because she had learned 17 years ago that the information you gather before an emergency is the only information you have during one. She thought about the fact that this knowledge had been sitting in a computer chart for 18 months, and that if tonight had gone differently, if she had not been in the building, if she had not been flagged, if the information had not existed to be found, Marcus Webb would have run out of time while the people trying to save him looked at each other across an operating table and couldn't understand why nothing was working. She looked at the clock. 8:52 p.m. The blood arrived at 8:54. She was still in the hallway at 11:17 p.m. when her 3's doors opened and the surgical team began to emerge. Dr. Anand came out first. She pulled her mask down. She looked at Simone. "He's stable," she said. "Repair is complete. Compatible blood worked immediately, no reaction." Simone nodded. "Thank you," Dr. Anand said. "Genuinely. How's he look for recovery?" "Good. Better than we had any right to expect 90 minutes ago." Anand paused. "Simone, the chart notation. The extended panel. You ran that yourself?" "Standard workup. I always run extended panels on pre-op patients. It's not required. But it costs nothing and it matters sometimes." Anand was quiet for a moment. It mattered tonight. Then the OR door opened again and Dr. Elliot Marsh walked out. He was still in his surgical gown, mask pulled below his chin. He looked tired in the way surgeons look tired after a long and technically demanding case, depleted but oriented, the specific exhaustion of a mind that has been running at full capacity for 3 hours. He looked at Simone. She looked back. He had 4 options. She knew this. She had been sitting in this hallway for 2.5 hours and she had thought about all 4 of them. He could say nothing and walk past her. He could say something dismissive. He could say something adequate. Or he could say something true. He stood in front of her for a long moment. The RH17 notation, he said finally. It was in the chart. Yes. I wouldn't have found it in an emergency presentation. Standard type and screen wouldn't have flagged it. No. It wouldn't. Another pause. You ran that extended panel 18 months ago. Yes. Why? She looked at him steadily. Because he was my patient. And I take care of my patients. Marsh looked at the floor. Then at his hands. Then at her. He has a daughter, Simone said. She started college today. He drove her himself. She watched something move across Marsh's face. Something old and medical and human, the thing that gets buried under years of authority and habit and the protective certainty that you are always the most important person in the room. I said something to you tonight, he said, he stopped. Started again. The way I spoke to you was unacceptable. Yes, she said. It was. I'd like to. Dr. Marsh. She stood. She was not tall, 5'4" in her nursing clogs, but she was very still, and stillness has its own kind of height. I have been a nurse in this hospital for 17 years. I have a doctorate. I have contributed to this institution in ways that are documented and in ways that are not, because the ways that matter most in nursing are often the ones that nobody writes down. I do not need an apology tonight. I need what happened in that or to not happen again. To me, or to the nurses who come after me. He was quiet. That, she said, is what I need from you. She picked up her bag from the chair. Tell Marcus Webb his daughter's gonna have someone to call when she comes home for Thanksgiving. She walked to the elevator. She pressed the button. She went home. 3 months later, Mercy General Hospital implemented a new surgical consult protocol, the first update to the policy in 9 years. It required that any nursing staff member with documented clinical expertise relevant to an active surgical case be permitted to provide a formal consult through a 2-minute structured communication window. It could not be refused by the attending physician. It had to be documented. The protocol was drafted by Dr. Yolanda Harris, the Chief Medical Officer, in consultation with the hospital's Nursing Leadership Council. Simone Graves was on that council. She had been nominated by Dr. Priya Anand. And seconded, quietly without fanfare, in a committee email that Simone read on her lunch break and then put her phone face down on the cafeteria table and sat with for a moment, by Dr. Elliot Marsh. Marcus Webb was discharged 22 days after his surgery. His wife brought flowers to the cardiac ICU, a large, impractical bouquet of sunflowers that made the nurse's station smell like summer. She asked to see the nurse who had helped save her husband. Simone was paged. She came down in her scrubs. Marcus Webb's wife, a small woman named Gloria with reading glasses pushed up on her forehead and the particular composure of a person who has held themselves together for 3 weeks by sheer will, took Simone's hands in both of hers. She didn't say much. She didn't have to. Some things don't need the right words. Some things just need the right person to have been there. Here is what I want you to hold on to. That extended panel, the one that saved Marcus Webb's life, was not required. It was not on any checklist. It was not something Simone was evaluated on or credited for or even noticed for doing. She did it because she was thorough. She did it because she cared. She did it in 2006 for a man she would not see again for 18 months, at a moment when no one was watching and there was no reason to go the extra step beyond the person who chooses, every day without recognition, to be excellent anyway. The world is full of Simone Graves. In gray uniforms. In nursing clogs. In positions that underpay the knowledge they carry and overlook the care they extend without being asked. And one day, quietly in a hallway with a printed chart page and a phone number memorized for an emergency that hadn't happened yet, they saved the thing that needed saving. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who shows up every day without being asked. And tell us, have you ever had a nurse, a teacher, a colleague, someone overlooked, step in when it mattered most? Leave their name in the comments. They deserve to be seen. New stories every Tuesday and Friday. Subscribe so you never miss one.